Have you ever wondered how the greatest empire in history disappeared? An empire so powerful that millions of people believed it would last forever. Its armies conquered continents. Its cities were filled with wealth. Its name alone struck fear into the hearts of kings. From the outside, Rome looked unstoppable. But behind the glory, behind the victories, behind the golden statues and massive palaces, the empire was slowly falling apart. Not because of one battle, not because of one enemy. It was destroyed by something far more dangerous. A series of mistakes, greed, corruption, and leaders who forgot what made Rome truly great. This is the true story of how the Roman Empire rose to rule the world, and why its shocking fall still holds a powerful lesson for us today. To understand why Rome fell, we first have to understand why it became so powerful. More than 2,000 years ago, Rome was nothing more than a small city on the banks of the Tiber River in Italy. No one could have imagined that this tiny settlement would one day become the greatest empire the world had ever seen. Rome didn't become powerful overnight. It grew step by step, battle after battle, generation after generation. The Romans believed that strength came from discipline, loyalty, and hard work. Every soldier was trained to fight as part of a team. They didn't rely on one hero to win a battle. They trusted each other, followed orders, and never gave up easily. That discipline made the Roman army different from almost every other army of its time. As Rome won more wars, its borders kept expanding. It conquered neighboring cities, then entire kingdoms, and eventually stretched across Europe, North Africa, and parts of the Middle East. At its peak, the Roman Empire controlled millions of people speaking different languages, following different religions, and living thousands of miles apart. Yet somehow, they were all connected by one empire, one law, one government, one symbol of power, Rome. The Romans built thousands of miles of roads that connected distant cities like never before. These roads allowed soldiers to move quickly, merchants to trade safely, and ideas to spread across continents. Many of those roads were built so well that parts of them still exist today. Rome wasn't just powerful because of its army. It was also one of the most advanced civilizations in the ancient world. Its engineers built massive bridges, aqueducts that carried fresh water over long distances, public baths, stadiums, temples, and cities that amazed visitors from every corner of the empire. One of the greatest examples of Roman engineering was the Colosseum. It could hold tens of thousands of spectators who gathered to watch gladiator battles, animal hunts, and public events. For many Romans, these shows were more than entertainment. They were a symbol of the empire's strength and greatness. Trade also helped Rome become incredibly wealthy. Ships arrived every day carrying silk from Asia, spices from the East, gold from Africa, marble from Greece, and countless other valuable goods. Markets were full of life. The streets were crowded with merchants, travelers, soldiers, and people chasing new opportunities. To many citizens, Rome seemed like the center of the world. People believed the empire would never fall. If you lived in Rome during its golden age, you probably felt the same way. The empire looked too rich to fail, too organized to collapse, too powerful to be defeated. Its armies had crushed countless enemies. Its cities continued to grow. Its leaders celebrated victory after victory. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But history has taught us something important. Sometimes the greatest dangers don't come from outside an empire. They begin quietly, hidden beneath success. While Rome celebrated its victories, small cracks were already beginning to appear. At first, almost no one noticed them. But with every passing year, those cracks grew wider. And before long, they would become impossible to ignore. At first, the problems inside Rome were almost impossible to see. The empire still looked powerful from the outside. Its armies protected the borders, trade continued, and the cities remained busy. But behind that image of success, things were slowly changing. One of the biggest problems was politics. Good leaders became harder to find, and many emperors cared more about keeping their power than serving their people. Some ruled for only a few months before being overthrown or killed. As new rulers took the throne again and again, the empire became unstable. Corruption spread through the government. Officials often used their positions to become richer instead of helping the people. Money that should have supported the empire disappeared into the hands of the powerful. At the same time, the gap between the rich and the poor continued to grow. The wealthy lived in beautiful homes, enjoyed expensive feasts, and owned huge amounts of land. Meanwhile, many ordinary families struggled to pay taxes and put food on the table. Life became harder with each passing year. People slowly began to lose trust in their leaders. They no longer believed the government truly cared about them. Then another serious problem appeared. The Roman Empire had become so large that it was becoming difficult to control. Messages took weeks to travel across the empire, making it harder for the government to respond quickly to problems. By the time help arrived, the damage was often already done. To make things even worse, Rome faced growing pressure along its borders. Different tribes began testing the empire's defenses, looking for opportunities to attack. Rome was still strong, but it was no longer the united empire it had once been. The foundation that had made Rome great was beginning to weaken, one mistake at a time. And soon, those hidden cracks would turn into a collapse that would change history forever. By now, Rome was no longer fighting only its enemies. It was fighting itself. Years of poor decisions had pushed the empire into a crisis that became harder to escape. One of the biggest problems was money. The Roman government spent huge amounts on the army, public buildings, and the luxurious lifestyles of some emperors. To cover these costs, taxes kept rising. Farmers, merchants, and ordinary families struggled to survive. When that wasn't enough, the government made a dangerous mistake. It started producing coins with less silver than before. The coins looked almost the same, but they were worth much less. As more of these weaker coins entered the economy, prices began to rise. Food became more expensive. Clothes became more expensive. Almost everything cost more than it had before. Many families could no longer afford even their basic needs. At the same time, Rome faced another challenge. The empire had become too large to defend. Thousands of miles of borders needed soldiers, supplies, and constant protection. It was becoming impossible to protect every part of the empire. Then came another costly decision. There were no longer enough Roman citizens willing to join the army. So the empire began hiring foreign mercenaries. Many of them were skilled warriors, but they were loyal to their pay, not to Rome. If someone offered them more money, their loyalty could quickly disappear. The army that had once been united by honor and discipline slowly became weaker. One mistake alone could not destroy Rome. But together, corruption, heavy taxes, inflation, an oversized empire, and a weakening army, they slowly drained the strength that had once made Rome unstoppable. The empire still stood, but its foundation was beginning to crumble. All it needed now was one final push. That final push came from beyond Rome's borders. For years, different tribes had watched the empire grow weaker. They saw the political chaos, the struggling economy, and an army that was no longer as powerful as it once had been. One by one, Germanic tribes began crossing into Roman territory. Among them were the Visigoths, who would become one of Rome's greatest enemies. In 410 AD, something happened that shocked the ancient world. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, marched into the city of Rome and captured it. For nearly 800 years, the city had been seen as untouchable. Now its streets were filled with fear. Homes were looted, buildings were destroyed, citizens fled for their lives. Although the empire survived this attack, its image of invincibility was gone forever. Then an even greater threat appeared. A powerful warrior named Attila the Hun swept across Europe with a massive army. His reputation was so terrifying that entire cities surrendered without a fight. Even though Attila never permanently conquered Rome itself, his invasions left the empire weaker than ever before. By this point, the Western Roman Empire was running out of time. Its economy was failing, its leaders were divided, its army was exhausted, and enemies surrounded it from every direction. Finally, in 476 AD, the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was removed from power by the Germanic leader Odoacer. There was no great final battle, no heroic last stand. The empire that had ruled millions simply faded away under the weight of its own failures. The Western Roman Empire had fallen. An empire that once seemed impossible to defeat had become one of history's greatest lessons. But even though Rome had fallen, its story was far from over. The Western Roman Empire may have fallen in 476 AD, but Rome's influence never truly disappeared. Its roads, laws, architecture, language, and ideas continue to shape the world for centuries. Even today, many modern governments, legal systems, and buildings are inspired by ancient Rome. In many ways, Rome never really died. Its greatest legacy wasn't the land it conquered. It was the civilization it left behind. But the fall of Rome also teaches us something far more important. No nation, no empire, and no civilization is too powerful to fail. History shows us that great nations are rarely destroyed by a single enemy. More often, they collapse because of problems that begin from within. corruption, greed, political division, economic struggles, and leaders who place their own ambitions above the people they serve. These were the same mistakes that slowly weakened one of the greatest empires the world had ever known. Rome didn't fall in a single day. It fell one decision at a time, one mistake at a time, one generation at a time. That's why the story of Rome is more than just history. It's a warning, a reminder that power without wisdom never lasts forever. And perhaps the greatest lesson from the Roman Empire isn't how it rose, it's how it fell. Because those who ignore the lessons of history are often destined to repeat them. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary and want to explore more incredible stories from history, make sure to subscribe to Kyron CKS and join us as we uncover the events, mysteries, and empires that shaped our world. Until next time, keep exploring history